So the next thing I want to talk about is something that you guys I know have been waiting to hear my opinion on, which is this horseshit infrastructure bill that is being negotiated in Congress. And my so let me just back it up a little bit. One of the conversations that really drew me to left new media when I first got into it was the conversation about the Overton window in the United States and how it continues to just shift to the right, and it's so extremely to the right to this point that it's basically a fucking parody of some type of like fascist government at this point. And I really appreciated that discourse that was happening all over left new media, and basically anybody who was hosting a show, they would have conversations about that because it really did a great job of framing the political climate in the US and how we got to where we are and how it keeps getting worse. And for those of you who aren't familiar with that conversation, the Overton window is the spectrum of respectable political discourse, respectable political debate in a society. And here, the Overton window, it's so, especially the conversation amongst the people in power, it is so to the right that it doesn't even make sense and it doesn't even resemble anything that benefits the people. It's just rank corporatocracy, rank oligarchy. And that's considered like the normal position to take here. And so I always appreciated the conversations about that and to bring that to people's awareness. But noticeably, that conversation has been missing anywhere in left new media, which is a damn shame because the Overton window is moving further and further to the right quicker than at any point in since I've been following politics closely. And part of that is because of the state of crisis that we're in with the pandemic and the economic crisis. And the as Naomi Klein before she lost her fucking mind, as she described in the shock doctrine, this is disaster capitalism, and the elites, the capitalists, the millionaires and the billionaires, they see an opportunity to advance radical change, and in a direction that benefits them, and that's what's happening, and that's why the Overton window is shifting so dramatically to the right in such a short period of time. And one of the areas where it's so clear is this infrastructure bill that's being negotiated. Because if you look at the scale of crisis in this country, and you also consider the fact that Democrats completely control the House, control the Senate, and they control the White House, it is unconscionable that they don't do everything in their power to meet this moment. And anything less than that is them begging for revolt, is them begging for people to take to the streets and fuck shit up. That's honestly the most reasonable interpretation of what the political climate in this country is and how big the political agenda should be. So um in regards to this stimulus bill, the Overton window is in fucking crazy town because it's not they're not proposing to do anything major to solve any of the major crises that we're facing. And I left out the climate crisis. We are knee deep, neck deep in a climate apocalypse. And the window to do anything about it is closing. People keep stretching it and saying, "Oh, it's 12 years from now, it's 10 years from now." But that's what they were saying during the primary back in 2019. That was so 2 years ago. The and at every turn, the scientists keep saying it's worse than we predicted. So if we were going by the original 10-year timeline, that was people were talking about 10 years. I mean, back in 2019, we have like 8 years left to do something to avoid to avert literal hell on earth conditions during our lifetime. And again, considering that and COVID and the economic crisis, the mass homelessness crisis, mass eviction crisis, 20 million people about to be evicted. How on earth can anybody justify them doing this shitty infrastructure bill? Two shitty infrastructure bills, one bipartisan one that's like $1.5 trillion, giant privatization scheme to sell off of public services, public land to private corporations so they could make a buck off of it. That's basically what the $1.5 trillion infrastructure bill is. And then the one that everybody is pretending is like our saving grace and is like the best thing since sliced bread, the $3.5 trillion reconciliation bill that Bernie Sanders wrote, that is also shit, and that also doesn't come anywhere near addressing the scale of crises that we're facing with. And by the way, note that this isn't $3.5 trillion over a year. This isn't $1.5 trillion over a year. All of that money is supposed to be allocated over 10 years. So when you look at it, they're talking about a couple $100 billion a year, less than the we spend on the military budget, to deal with the climate crisis, to deal with the mass homelessness crisis, to deal with the crumbling infrastructure, to deal with the people being poisoned. There is lead and contaminants in so many different communities across the country. We need to tear up all the fucking pipes and rebuild the infrastructure. And they dedicated maybe half of what the Pentagon budget is to all of those major issues. And so I don't know how anybody sees this as anything less than a giant slap in the face and go fuck yourself when the Democrats completely control government. So needless to say, I've been disappointed with everybody pushing this bullshit infrastructure bill. Disappointed with the way that everybody in new media has been covering it, because they've taken the position that this is the best we got. So they aren't pushing. They will say, "Oh, Medicare for all is great. I support Medicare for all. We need Medicare for all. Let's all the statistics and all the things." But they said they're going to lower the Medicare eligibility age like from 65 to 60. So hey, that's great. That's a good thing. So give them a round of applause. Yay, progressives. What the fuck is that? But that's what they're doing. With this entire package, nobody in left new media, no activists are pushing them to do what's actually necessary. The furthest left position, the furthest left take you will find out there is, I'm going to hold these progressives to the $3.5 trillion that they arbitrarily decided is what they're not going to move from, which I know they will. I'm going to hold them to that, and that's the furthest left position. You're going to hold them to a bunch of neoliberal policies that don't meet the moment, then you're holding them to neoliberalism, and neoliberalism is now your standard. Because what is really getting under my fucking skin is how everybody's pretending like the urgency that was here during the Bernie campaign, they're pretending like that urgency just doesn't exist anymore, and now people will actually have more time to wait, even though the situation has gotten dramatically worse than it was during the primary. They act like the urgency doesn't exist anymore, and then they act like the policies that we all agreed to, they act like those didn't exist, and now we're just operating off of a completely different standard, which is what these shitty progressives say is their what they're proposing. But what all they're proposing is neoliberal shit that corporate Democrats would agree to. So, like overnight, everybody shifted to the right and said, okay, now all we're doing is neoliberalism, and that's the best we're gonna get here. And it's a lot of this accepting, this like I said, the best we're gonna get. And like I said, this infrastructure bill is such a perfectly highlights that, because what was Bernie Sanders proposing? What was his Green New Deal proposal when he was running for president? again, they were operating off of the 10-year window given to us by the international climate scientists. And they said, we need to get to net zero carbon emissions immediately. And in order to do that, Bernie Sanders was proposing like a $16 trillion Green New Deal to retrofit all buildings in this country so that they run on green renewable energy, building power plants that run on green renewable energy, building hundreds of thousands of electric car charging stations across the country, maybe millions of electric car charging stations across the country. Literally overhauling our entire infrastructure. $16 trillion. So you mean to tell me now Bernie Sanders dropped $13 trillion from the price tag, and we're supposed to just accept that and be like, oh, that's all we're going to get, $3.5 trillion. And again, that's not $3.5 trillion dedicated to the climate crisis like Bernie Sanders was. That's $3.5 trillion for universal pre-K, which I doubt that they're going to do. That's $3 trillion, $3.5 trillion to cover lowering the Medicare eligibility age and expanding the Affordable Care Act. So all of these things are supposed to fit in $3.5 trillion, and nobody's calling bullshit on that. So I have a clip from Jordan Sheridan that basically encapsulates the bullshit and the doublespeak that they're trying to do when it comes to this infrastructure bill. So I'm gonna play that clip for you all, and then we'll come back and break it down. I'll be looking at the live chat to make sure everything's all right with the video, and so I'll get that going, and we will be
blow up your spot, but this is the perfect opener to respond to this. Focus within. Jordan, preach incrementalism already. So, Colin, if you could put up to blow up your spot, but this is the perfect opener to respond to this. Focus. Blow up your spot, but this is the perfect opener to respond to this. Focus within. Jordan, preach incrementalism already. So, Colin, if you could put up the list of the key points in this 3.5 trillion reconciliation deal. So, universal pre-K would be in it. Free community college would be in it. Paid family leave would be in it. Child tax credit, which on its own I think is kind of incremental, but with all these other things, I think is very good. This child tax credit could be up to $3,000 for most families, up to $5,000, depending on, what is it, the income threshold, Jen?
I'm not, we'll have to check on that.
Okay. So child tax credit, then you have expanding Medicare, dental, hearing, and vision, which is important because in the fight for actual Medicare for all, it's important to expand the actual Medicare program so that if we were to get Medicare for all, well, the Medicare program also has dental, vision, and hearing. So it is important to have that. 80% electric power by 2030, affordable housing investment. There's several other things in there like key climate proposals. I don't know if it's going to pass because they live and die by the parliamentarian, which is bullshit. But trying to make undocumented immigrants, giving them legal status, which would be huge. So Colin, put it back up. To that person that said that, and I'm not fighting with you. Let me ask you a question, and we didn't put it up there, but 3.5 trillion. Let's just say 2-3 years ago. Would you be calling this incremental? Literally ask yourself, would you be calling these things incremental? Because none of these things are temporary. For example, the coronavirus relief package had the temporary, it was all temporary. Eviction moratoriums, rental relief, the child tax credit, all those things temporary. For progressives, our goal is permanent structural change, right? So would you be calling $3.5 trillion, which, by the way, is the largest social spending package in modern American history? And we don't have everything up on the screen. These are the key points, but there's other stuff in there. $3.5 trillion, which is the largest spending package for actual people. There's been larger social spending packages to bail out banks and fossil fuckers and big companies. But for actual working people, 3.5 trillion with actual things with teeth. If any YouTube hosts are going to tell you none of these things matter, then they're lying to you. Because ask Jen or others if universal pre-K would matter. Ask, frankly, Black, brown, indigenous, poor whites if free community.
I'll speak on that.
All right, so I got some things to say about that. Um, so first of all, he's repeating their fucking bullshit talking points propaganda. Oh yeah, free community college is gonna be. If you believe that bullshit after the bait and switch that Biden has done, you're a fucking idiot. You're a fucking idiot. So Biden, first of all, he has the ability right now to completely eliminate student loan debt. Is he gonna do it? No, the fuck he's not. He ran on eliminating like $10,000 in student loan debts. It was always, the number was always fluctuating. It was $10,000, then it was $30,000, whatever the fuck. He hasn't done it yet. All it would take is him to sign a piece of paper, and he hasn't done it yet. So if you fucking think that the corporate Democrats, and again, this is just something that just wiping the debt away is something that Biden can do with this, just him signing a piece of paper, and he hasn't done it yet. But you think they're going to wrangle all the corporate Democrats or enough corporate Democrats to pass free community college? Are you fucking serious? Are you serious? Did you think about that shit? Did you take a minute to think about that shit? Or did you see that it was there? Did you see that somebody wrote it there, and now, oh, they said it's there, they said that they're going to push for it, so there's a good chance it passes. No, it's not going to fucking pass. And stop telling people it's going to fucking pass. They're going to pass free community college. Fuck out of here with that. But then also, he talks about, oh, they have these universal programs. Don't we love universal programs? And he talks about the universal daycare. First of all, it's not a universal program. A universal program is something that everybody benefits from. Who that benefits is everybody with fucking kids. There are plenty of people in this country who do not have kids. So that program will do absolutely nothing to improve their lives while we are mid-crisis, mid-apocalypse here in this country. So again, that's not true that that's like some grand universal. And of course, it would help so many people. It would help millions and millions of people who can't afford a childcare in this country. But again, when you compare that to the scale of the crisis that's what's going on here, tell me how much does universal childcare help when millions of families are being thrown out into the streets right now? Please tell me how much that helps them. I'm sure they would prefer a home for their family over universal childcare. But also, like, all of this, the way he's framing all of this is, oh, it's not what we want, but it's good enough. That's what's on offer. So are you going to take it or are you not? And again, that sounds like some neoliberal bullshit. And I don't you guys know I'm not like huge on political labels and things like that. And I'm not like a Dave Rubin, like, oh, don't label me or whatever. Like, I just don't think, and like all this theory and stuff like that, or I subscribe to this particular theory, and if you don't, you're wrong, XYZ. I just don't think that's the most effective way to communicate politics to people. I think the most effective way to do that is to speak to issues that affect people and translate it in like real language that regular people can understand. But I do think political labels serve a purpose, especially in this moment, because there needs to be some distinction between the actual left, by any means necessary left, and the people who say they agree with our policies, they like our policies, they all sound good on paper, but one, they aren't doing anything to advance the agenda, and two, at every turn they fold like fucking lawn chairs and say, this is the best we're gonna get, so I'll accept the neoliberalism. So I do think we need to make that distinction, because you can't keep calling yourself a lefty. You can't say, "Oh, I'm down for the movement. I'm down for the cause," but your entire framework of how you operate in reality is within the neoliberal framework. Because if that's the case, then you're just a fucking neoliberal who thinks Medicare for all sounds nice. And you know who else was saying that? A bunch of fucking Hillary Clinton supporters and shit lives. Oh yeah, of course. If we could start all over, of course single payer would be nice, but man, that's not reality. And you got to get to work with the Republicans and the Democrats and Joe Manchin. It's just not feasible right now. But what is lowering the Medicare eligibility age and expanding Medicaid. So I think it's important to use those labels because, like I said, that is a lot of neoliberal claptrap and defending the status quo while you're paying lip service and pretending like you want more, but you're not. You keep telling people to accept less. So, in any sane world, when the Democrats control government as they do right now, and it won't be like this for long, because almost definitely they're going to lose the midterms and lose the House. So right now is the opportunity to, one, avert climate apocalypse. This is the last chance that they have to avert climate apocalypse without some massive pressure in the streets. This is their chance to do something about unprecedented homelessness and eviction crisis. They've only passed one piece of legislation the entire time Biden's been in the White House and since Democrats took control of the government. And it's been almost a year now. And the year's almost up. So this will be the last major legislation of 2021. And if this is what you're okay with, this is what you're going to accept, you would have to drag me kicking and screaming before I would come anywhere near saying this is okay. But like I said, these neoliberals masking as leftists, as soon as this was proposed, they had no pushback for the charlatan, fraud, alleged progressive politicians in Congress. There was no pushback. Bernie said, "Oh, I know I was running on $16 trillion for the Green New Deal, but I'm going to put a couple $100 billion for to address climate change in this $3.5 trillion bill, and that's the best I got, and you're going to take it and you're going to accept it." None of them said, "Fuck you, Bernie, that's bullshit. People should be outside your office protesting for more." No, they didn't. They said, well, this is what Bernie Sanders is doing. This is what Pramila Jayapal says. This is what AOC says they're going to fight for. So by lining in the sand is this arbitrary number that they've set, and that's the farthest we're going to go. And Jordan talks, and again, talking like a fucking neoliberal. He says, "Oh, it's a $3.5 trillion spending bill. There's never been a spending bill this big in history, in U.S. history." Again, that means fuck all. That means absolutely nothing. And again, when you compare the scale of the crisis and what's happening right now, that means absolutely nothing. And so you're going to, instead of talking about the policies and the policies that are necessary to deal with what's happening in this country, you're going to talk about the price tag. "Oh, it's so big. Aren't you guys happy? It's a really big number." Glossing over the fact that in context for what's happening, it's fucking worthless. It's worthless. And that doesn't even, and again, there's giant corporate giveaways in this too. So, and then he talks about, "Oh, well, progressives, our goal is permanent structural change. So some things in here are going to be permanent. So why aren't you happy with that?" That's not my goal. My goal isn't just permanent structural change, because you couldn't make anything permanent. Is it good or not? Is it what's required or not? That's my fucking goal. Does it meet the needs of the people or not? That's my goal. To solve people's problems with government as it fucking should. That's my goal. My goal isn't just structural change and in the fine print, it's structural change, but it doesn't really do anything. And so my whole thing on this infrastructure bill is, if you are proposing that we do 10% of what's necessary uh, 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 to actually get us in the right direction. You propose doing 10% of that. 10% of reduction in the apocalypse means fucking apocalypse and end times for everybody else. That doesn't change the what's happening. It might make some tweaks around the edges. It may make things slightly better for some people. Or people with kids, you know, you're getting the tax credit, and you might maybe, I highly doubt it, get some childcare. And almost they, if that shit passes, it would be, they would put so much fucking means testing on that shit that it would be like damn near like maybe 5 people would qualify for the childcare at the end of it anyway. But if your goal is just permanent structural change, you know what would be permanent structural change? If the government decided, oh, you know what, we're going to give everybody $100 tax credit every year, everybody in the country. That's permanent. That's universal. So, but does it change anything? No, it doesn't. So that's just like some weird arbitrary line that he decided and he set for himself. So I will not get behind that bullshit. I'm not gonna support the Justice Democrats. I'm not gonna give them a round of applause. I'm not gonna throw them a fucking parade, because they made some noise about a $3.5 trillion bill. I don't give a fuck about that. Does it meet the moment? No, it doesn't. So it doesn't get my support, and that's my very simple standards that I have here. And everybody in new media, like I said, they're just phoning it in at this point. They might say, "Oh, I like Medicare for all," but when they propose this bullshit, lowering the Medicare eligibility age and expanding the Affordable Care Act, I'm not going to push at all to get Medicare for all. I'm going to accept that, knowing goddamn well that this is the last time that they're going to pass any major reforms to healthcare policy. This is similar to when they passed the Affordable Care Act. They're going to wash their hands of this and said, "I'm done. I reformed healthcare. It was big. It was structural. It never happened before in history. I did it, and this is the best you're gonna get from me in regards of healthcare." That's exactly what the fuck they're gonna do if they do any of this that lowered the Medicare eligibility age. And knowing that, people in left media are gonna say, "Nah," shrug their shoulders, like, "This is the best guy." I know millions, hundreds of thousands of people are still gonna be dying unnecessarily because they can't afford healthcare. But hey, they lowered the eligibility age to 65. So why don't you guys take yes for an answer? Why don't you guys give credit where it's due? Why aren't you guys praising politicians more? In a failed fucking state where they've left us for dead, why aren't you praising politicians more for doing minor tweaks and fucking tweaks around the edges? Why aren't you praising them for more neoliberalism? So that's my take on the infrastructure bill. I'm not even. I had no interest in following the fucking theater that was going on around that shit. The only commentary I'm providing to that shit is that it's not enough. And I'm not gonna tell nobody. I'm not telling anybody. Oh, it's good. Oh, it's okay. You should be happy because there's some good thing. I'm not telling people that shit at all. I'm telling people it's not enough, and that's my only fucking commentary you're gonna get on this from me. So let me check out the chat and see what's happening in the chat. So many live chat comments. I'm trying to go back to when I was like when the video was playing and when I was doing commentary, so I could get you guys respond to what you guys were saying in real time. Austin B says Jordan Sheridan does good work, but shit commentary. I mean, that is literally everybody, almost everybody. Anybody's criticism of status quo. That's basically what it is. Anybody's criticism of status quo is exactly that. Your original on the ground reporting, we appreciate it. Your commentary is fucking trash though. DOG says Jordan and Jen can have consistent shit takes on majority of issues. That is the truth. That is the fucking truth. Radical leftist agenda says this helps for people with kids. When are they going to help everyone out? This is my, and I really fucking, I'm really fed up with this shit because they keep doing this shit and they're trying to hide behind the kids. Oh, we did something for the kids. You can't be mad at us. We did something. Fuck the kids. I know that sounds mean, but fuck them kids. What about everybody else? Like with the tax credit, they were over here dancing and throwing a fucking parade about the tax credit. I mean, we're in the middle of a fucking economic crisis. What about the people who don't have kids? They're just gonna kick rocks? Like, what the fuck is that? I'm a full American says pragmatic progressive, aka squad simple. Yep, that's definitely it. That pragmatic progressive bullshit. And I ain't with that at all. So you can take that to our revolution, but don't bring that shit around here. Deep Moody Purple Blue says we need these things yesterday, not years down the road. Did they project how many people would die in the meantime while we wait for those things? Exactly. And another thing that I wish I goddamn mentioned when I was responding to Jordan's clip. So in when he was talking in that video, he said something about, oh, imagine 2 years ago. Imagine if we had they proposed this and they proposed universal childcare and they proposed all these other things that are in the infrastructure bill. And he was like, oh, would you be saying these are incremental? Would you say, yes, actually, I probably would be saying those incremental because those aren't the policies that I signed up for 2 years ago. But even still, Jordan, let me think for a moment. What has happened between now and 2 years ago? Oh, that's right. The fucking sky started falling. There was a fucking pandemic, unprecedented economic crisis. That's what happened in the last 2 years. So if you're proposing anything that would have been good 2 years ago, you're not meeting the moment. By definition, you aren't meeting the fucking moment.